Hey Internet, we are back with our round trip around Kerbin. We start where we left off last time, after we've flown our first leg of our round trip around Kerbin, which hopefully won't take us 80 days, like in 80 days around the world. So now we are ready to go for our second leg. Let me start our engines. We will continue our way west and let's have hopefully gently and well working takeoff so we can continue our journey. I'm a little bit concerned because there's some hill over there, but I hope I can take off before we will run into the hill and damage our aircraft. Okay, we are good to go, we are climbing up, we are flying, excellent. So let's climb up to our altitude, our travel altitude, where we can fly in very high speed and won't use much fuel during this travel, so it's a pretty much economic flight. Let's say farewell to our flag where we landed with our first Kerbin round trip leg. It's already 5 kilometers away and we are climbing straight up and continue our way west. So yes, we're making good ground. Let's see where we will end this leg after our almost same distance, I guess, or same flight distance from the amount of time we will spend on this flight. I think we will be a little bit faster because I have already used some fuel, so my aircraft is getting lighter, and by this it's also hopefully getting a little bit faster. So yeah, so much about that. What else? Today I like to talk a little bit about a completely different thing, because today I want to talk a little bit about travel I did, or we did, in the early month of this year. I guess it was, I should have looked it up again. I think it was in the last days of February or in the first days of March, when we traveled also north. We traveled up to the northern Norway, to the Lofoten, and stayed there a week. So because we wanted to see the northern light, and at Lofoten there's a pretty much good spot to see the northern light. But if you even go much further north, like around Tromsø, or if you're going up to Iceland, you have better chances and you even better possibilities to see the northern light. But we went up to the Lofoten. It was a interesting flight up there because we had to we did, how much stops we did around 1, 2, I guess we did 3 stops. At first we flew over to Stockholm. From Stockholm we our next flight was to Oslo, from Oslo to Bodø, and finally from Bodø over to the islands of Lofoten. So it was a long day with a lot of stops, with a lot of excitement between the flights, and also excitement during the flights, because flying is interesting and makes fun and whatnot. So yeah, we were going up north and we wanted to see the northern light, but it wasn't clear if we are able to see the northern light, because northern light is only if the sun is active enough in this time, and well, you can't predict the activity of the sun for a long you can't predict the activity of the sun for a long time, so you can only see, okay, there was some activity of the sun. This is meaning that in the next 2 days there might be some northern light. So we were also checking all the time spaceweather.com and followed the the website to see if there might be some northern light. And yeah, at first we weren't unlucky. Sometimes it was we weren't sure if there might be some northern light because it was cloudy, and if there are clouds you can't see any northern light. And there was also a lot of snow, but we were lucky in the it was around the end of the trip, around maybe midnight or so. Our host where we stayed suddenly came to us and said we should look out, and we go outside because there's northern light. And yes, it was, as we stepped out, the northern light just has started, and it's such an amazing impression seeing the northern light, because it's completely silent. You don't hear anything, okay, apart from some traffic noises or something like this, but the northern light itself, the light is moving without any noise. It's completely silent, and it's moving in a very slow motion. So it's changing over a long amount of time. So it's not like looking in fast motion, or if you are looking in fast forward. So it's very active, but it's well, it was very slow, and it's hard to describe. It was well, if you have played Skyrim and you've seen the Northern Light in Skyrim, that's pretty close to the real Northern Light I've experienced up in northern Norway. It was a very light blue. It was not as green, but as we looked at our pictures we have taken during the Northern Light impression, it has become completely green. So on the pictures it was green, but for my eyes it was light blue, and it was really interesting to see the thing. It was crossing from west to east, I guess, and it slowly moved a little bit and changed a bit its appearance. Sometimes it was a really long band, and sometimes it was a little bit scattered. And yes, it was just amazing seeing such beautiful things in the skies at night. It was also pretty cold at this night because it was still winter time and we were in northern Norway. So it was around I guess it was around -20 degrees Celsius out there. I'm not sure what's this in Fahrenheit because I'm not used to this imperial system, but well, it was around -20 degrees Celsius, and yeah, but it was so interesting. So yeah, it was just amazing. And I'm also let's say a very cold person because I really like the winter time. I like the snow, the ice, the cold temperatures, so I was pretty happy up there. Apart from seeing the northern light, which was really amazing, and it still impresses me if I'm thinking back to these days, seeing this evening of the northern light. I also tried out some hiking with snowshoes. This was really interesting because if there was sometimes really deep snow, and if you're moving without the snowshoes, you were sunk until your knees or your hips, and with the snowshoes you were able to move on top of the snow, and well, it was really interesting moving with these things. And so I did some hikings with them and enjoyed the landscape and the snow, and yes, it was really interesting being up there to the north in the winter time. Additional, very interesting was while we were up there, it was still the fishing time, and they are producing the stockfish. So they were catching all the cods, and well, there was much activities during the harbors. We were also up to the Lofoten in the summertime, but in the summertime the harbors are pretty empty and there isn't much activity. But in the wintertime there are so many fishermen and ships, and they are all bringing the catched fish to the land, and they're immediately processed in the facilities and prepared to be moved and hang up on the things where they dry the stockfish. So this was also pretty interesting, seeing all the activity in the winter time. And we spoke also to some fishermen. They were currently in work putting all the fish on top of the drying thing where they hang up all these stockfish. And yes, it was really interesting moving there around and discovering all the interesting ways how the stockfish is produced. So this was also pretty interesting. As I said, we had a lot of snow and it was sometimes cloudy, and the main problem was, or it was not a problem, but some days it snowed the whole day and it won't stop. And yes, it was just so much snow. Maybe it's normal for this region, but I was pretty much impressed by the amount of snow. And also interesting was the streets. Well, they drove around with a snowplow, but they don't use any salt or something like this to get the streets free of snow and ice, but instead they are using spikes for the tires. So you were driving around with tires with some spikes or on the on snow-covered roads. So this was also quite new to me. What else? Yes, we had a lot of snow. We had also some good days without snow and with sunshine, and everything was fine and interesting. And yes, interestingly is also as well, during my stay up there, during the winter time, it was the first time that I really made a hiking on top of a mountain of the Lofoten's mountains, because during summertime when we were there, we were driving around and enjoying the landscape, but I was never climbing up to a mountain, and this was the first time that I was able to climb on top of a mountain of the Lofoten. I was doing this with our host. She is also a very good tour guide, and well, so we both did a snowshoe hiking on top of a mountain, and it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed that. But the clear highlight and the clear goal for this trip up north was seeing the northern lights, and as we finally see them, it was just amazing. It was so impressive seeing this, and also because it was so silent and there was no noise, nothing happened, and it was just a spectacle you can't compare if you haven't seen it. Well, okay, I said you can compare it with the Northern Lights in Skyrim, because they are looking pretty accurate, but it's not as impressive as if you are looking higher at the sky and the whole sky is has traces of Northern Light, and the lines of the Northern Lights are crossing the whole sky. So this is really awesome, and it's hard to describe if you haven't seen it. So if you haven't seen the Northern Light and you have somehow the opportunity to travel somewhere where you might get the chance to see them, you should definitely do this and experience the Northern Lights, because it's really impressive and interesting. And another thing that comes to mind when I'm when I'm thinking back to the trip to northern Norway was, as I said, we were in wintertime there, and there are some beaches where surfers are doing actual surfing also during wintertime. So you're walking on the beach. The beach is normally a sandy beach, but this time it was a snow-covered beach, so you had the snow reaching until the sea. And in the sea there were some surfers who did some surfing in this cold temperature. So it was really interesting seeing that and watching them doing their surfer things and swimming around in the sea and waiting for the perfect wave to jump on their board and surf on these waves. So yes, this was really interesting as well. What else? What else can I... Oh yeah, another interesting thing was while we were walking on the beach, sometimes, or when we are walking on the sandy beach, we are used to build some sandcastles. Not myself, but in general, if you're there with some kids, or if you just want to have fun, you can build some sandcastles. But you won't come to the idea to build sandcastles if there's if it's almost freezing and you're sitting in the snow. But there were actually a mother with her child, and the child was so enthusiastic in building a sandcastle, and well, it was snowing and there was a very strong wind, but the child was so happy building sandcastles. That was also really interesting. And as I said, I like the cold temperatures, but I think I won't be so much interested in building sandcastles in this temperature. I'm more enjoying walking around and doing some hiking in this cold temperature instead of building a sandcastle. So yeah, as I said, we also had sometimes really strong wind, and which was also with the temperature pretty cold. But in general, it was just amazing being up there and seeing these landscape in the winter times, and also seeing all the other different things and impressions during this time. So yes, it was a really interesting trip, and the days passed by very quickly, and we did so much interesting things. And well, the highlight, as I have said already so often, was seeing the Northern Light and enjoying the Northern Light. And so it was a really interesting trip, and yeah, it was just amazing to see all the things. And I can't describe it, and I can only encourage you have a look there if you can see, or if you somehow can manage to get in a region where a Northern Light is likely. Just try to see them, because it's such an impressive thing, and you will be standing around in awe and looking up to the sky, and well, it's amazing to see all these things. So yes, and what's also so typical, the day when we had to travel back home, it was clear sky, it was beautiful weather, no clouds, the snow has stopped, everything was covered in snow, it was beautiful looking. And Yes, well, it was typical because it has to happen on the day when we left Earth and had to travel back home. After we had so many bad days and snowy weather and clouds and whatnot, and yes, so this was also a good farewell from the Lofoten, like we also do have good weather, come back again and maybe you will experience also some good weather at the Lofoten. So yes, it was like an invitation to come back again and to experience good weather, but well, let's see when this will happen. I'm looking forward to this, to come again to the northern regions, and I also have to experience sometime Iceland, because this is also looking pretty amazing. I've recently seen a lot of pictures from a voyage, from a travel up to Iceland, and I think I have to see this as well. And as I already have said during my polar mission, I also want to see someday the poles of the Earth as well, and to experience also the polar regions of our Earth. Okay, so much about this, but I was experienced some of the northern parts of our Earth while we were up there with our mission to the Northern Lights. So this was a really cool trip, and it was just amazing. Yeah, so much about my experience with was also astronomical, or maybe more space weather phenomena. And yes, I pretty much enjoyed this, and well, I hope to see someday again the Northern Lights, because it's a really impressive thing, and it's so quiet and beautiful, and it must be interesting if you're living up there, and well, it's common to you. So okay, well, it's Northern Light again, but I think something like the Northern Lights won't become common, because it's still such an amazing impression, and well, it's just beautiful. Okay, I've just looked at our orbital map. Let's see when we come across above this lake. I think I will fly across the upcoming mountain region, and afterwards I will do my descent and make our second landing, so we can plant our second flag from the round trip around Kerbin. And finally, now we are coming across the lake. A beautiful view from above toward the lake on the ground. Amazing looking. Very awesome. Okay, so yeah, this was a cool trip, and it's also related a little bit to Kerbal Space Program, because it's a space phenomenon, and it's coming from the sun. As I said, after some activities of the sun, it takes around 2 days until the Northern Light will begin, and then it's sometimes much likely. And you can check out all the things if you visit spaceweather.com if you want to see how much likely is it to see a Northern Light. There are different categories. As we see, ours was around category 3 or 4, and the scale is going up to, I guess, category 9, or was it 12? So we were pretty low as we see our Northern Light, and it was still impressive. And I think if you're seeing a very high scale Northern Light, this might be much more impressive and much more colorful and much more active than the Northern Light I have seen. So yeah, so much about that. Now I'm coming across this mountain region. Let me have another look from above of the mountains. Still looking interesting if you're using this point of view from my aircraft, and you can look right down onto the surface and see everything from above. I really like this idea I came up with during construction. Okay, so don't descend too much, let's climb up. Let me switch again to the orbital map. Okay, next up are some mountains over here. Here's looking a little bit like flat area, so let me throttle down and descend to the surface, because not completely throttling down, because I want to land again on flat surface and won't get in danger of ripping off my landing gears or destroying my aircraft. So yes, I want to descend and I want to do my second landing, and if I'm looking at the orbital map, we are around here. We did our first leg until this point, so I think I can fly back to Kerbal Space Center in the next episode. So it's a 3-episode round trip around Kerbin. Or to put it in other words, not in 80 days around the world, but in 3 episodes. But in 3 episodes around Kerbin. So yes, we have some analogy to the 80 days around the world thing, and we have our in 3 episodes around Kerbin. Oh yeah, references. Okay, we are coming down. We are descending. I'm still a little bit worried about the surface because it's looking a little bit uneven, and here I'm not sure, maybe around here this might be looking good. I hope I'm not wrong and I'm able to land over there, because if I can land here it's looking pretty flat. So let me descend even more and hope for the best. And we are still looking pretty good with our fuel. We haven't used half of our fuel capacity of this aircraft, so I think we're pretty much good to go to finish our round trip without running out of fuel. That's good. That's really good if we can do so. Okay, I was so I was so hooked up with my experience from the Northern Lights, so for me the time just passes by like flying almost does. It was like a flight this time. I was so engaged in my remembering and thinking back to the Northern Light trip, so I hope I have also give you some inspiration to see the Northern Light and to experience them, because it's such an amazing impression. If you're, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's really impressive if you are standing there and it's so silent and you're looking up the sky and the Northern Lights are moving around, and yes, it's just amazing. So if you have the chance to experience something like this, you should definitely do this, because it's just amazing, as I said so often during this episode. I haven't counted, but I think it was too often, and you might think, please stop talking around about Northern Lights. We know it is impressive, and please talk about something else, but I can't, because northern lights are just impressive. Okay, we made our second landing. We haven't destroyed our aircraft. Let me do a quick save. And also let's do an EVA and plant our flag as usual to mark our position of our second leg, so we can see it afterwards when we finished our mission, where we have stopped and do our off-airport landing. Okay, plant the flag, and ka-chunk, and ka-chunk, whoosh. Okay, round trip, or flight around Kerbin Leg 2, Zabi and Kirk landed here. Not a very good sentence, but still a sentence. And by saying this, let me do my usual speech. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you liked my round trip around Kerbin in 3 episodes. And if you do so, please like my video. Please become a subscriber to my channel. Please leave me a comment what you're thinking about this. And yes, my name is Abby. Until next episode, see you!